Welcome back to another episode of FatChat. I am super excited to have an elite basketball skills coach with me. He's got a lazy combined 1 million followers on TikTok, Instagram. Fuck me, what I could do with 1 million followers. How good. His name is Jono Hansford. Welcome, mate.
Thank you very much for having me.
Mate, I'm super excited to get into it with you. So this is the first time that we've met. I've been seeing all your clips on socials pop up. I'm sure pretty much anybody that's got even a little bit of interest in basketball in Australia definitely sees them. They've been going absolutely nuts. So tell us a little bit about just a quick little snippet about yourself and maybe some of the guys that you've been working with as part of your basketball skills coaching.
Well, I coach predominantly professional athletes, but a variety of just junior athletes, do a bunch of community coaching as well, and just love basketball. So very, a little bit obsessive, but just love getting good results and seeing guys get better. That's
awesome, man. And, you were telling me all this great stuff before, and I was going, mate, save it for the pod because everybody needs to hear all this good content that you're just spitting out. So let's go right back, even before we get into actually the basketball coaching and the skills and how you're helping, all these athletes that you're working with get fantastic results. Let's go right back and talk a little bit about you. So where did you grow up and how did you get into basketball? Tell me all the early day stuff.
I started playing a little bit later. So if athletes typically start playing basketball when they're roughly sort of 8-7 years old. I started when I was probably 11 or so.
Yep. Did you play any other sports before that?
I swam. I did a lot of swimming and did a little bit of footy, but once I sort of found basketball, I committed to it.
Yep.
And I started when I was younger. I was quite lucky in the fact that I was taller when I was younger. I'm only 6'2", but when I was in year 6, I was almost 6 foot. So
you're just a little bit ahead of everyone.
I was ahead of everyone. So I guess that even though I was older getting into the sport, I think that it came a little bit more naturally because I was at an advantage with my height back then.
For sure. Which is, there was some stat that I saw, and it was something like 75% of professional athletes that then go on to do, make pro teams were born in the first half of the year, which is crazy because that, like you said, the development over even a 6-month period, if you're a little bit ahead of some people, you get into the teams and you develop a little bit more and your skills are a little bit better and physically you can handle the game a little bit more as well.
That's crazy. I didn't know that.
Yeah, awesome. It's some wild stat like that. Anyway, sorry, continue.
So I guess I'll sort of tell a quick story about when I first started playing basketball. My first game, terrible.
No.
Cross court, back and forth, was shocking. Was so out of it, thought, blimey, this isn't for me. But probably one of the best lessons I ever learned was the next day, my dad took me outside and just said, okay, you're going to make 500 with your right hand, 500 with your left hand. And we had this big wooden fence up against the side of our sort of basketball ring. And he said, all right, so every 100, you're going to do a little dash. And so basically every day I would do 500 on my right, 500 on my left. My fence would start by the time we left that house. My fence was covered with all these dashes of fives. But the moral of the story was that every day I would do it, so I'd get my 1,000, my right hand, my left hand. And because I was quite tall, my next game, all I did when these kids missed their shots, I'd jump up and put it back up. So my second game, I scored roughly 20 points, which sounds like a lot, but I was really tall. But I think the really important thing I took away from that was that I learned the value of hard work. And I think it's not only that I got told, hey, you should work hard. I got told, almost learnt myself, hey, if you do work hard, this is the results that you get.
Yep.
In school and to this day.
That's crazy that was so early on for you. It sounds like your dad had, a big hand to play with getting in that sort of mindset and rhythm and you playing basketball.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know if it was I think you often get told that practice is the way to go, but I think that it's one thing to tell a kid that, but if you don't actually know why, they're just words.
Yep.
So I think it's really important, even if someone's in school and they're studying for a test, I think wherever they get their results, I think that's awesome. But for myself, in school, I'm very dyslexic. So when it comes to reading and writing was not my thing.
Yeah, right.
So I guess that classroom-wise, I still did all my work, but it just took me a lot longer. So I guess that when I found something that I think it was a little bit more natural for me at the start. Once I started practicing, I saw results from it. Because I might like study for tests, but I didn't do well until I had to put a ridiculous amount of work through it, which I still did. But I think different kids have different sort of measures that get them focused and learn how to work hard.
I think, like you said, if there's that right sort of, motivation, whether it's intrinsic, extrinsic, whatever, as long as you've got the right bit of motivation there, you can definitely get it done. But it sounds like that was obviously your little niche that you really love to do. I remember there was same sort of thing at school. I was okay at school, but the motivation to do stuff at school was not there. I'd much rather be doing other stuff. But I think there was like a maths test year 9. I got like 4% for this math. It was terrible. And I always wanted Foxtel. And Mum was like, oh yeah, Gerard, all right, this is terrible. I got sprayed for, having 4% of the maths test. But if you get 90% on your next one, we'll get Foxtel. And I went, fucking all right, let's go. So I'm studying, and I got like 98% the next test. So it just shows, as long as the motivation's there, whatever that may be, it's going to be very different for.
But you may not have learned that like that's why you start understanding, okay, if I actually do work hard, I do get some level of results. And I think that's foremost really important.
Yeah, exactly. And then for you growing up for juniors, was there any significant coaches for you, and who did you play for as well?
So I played for a few clubs. When I was younger, I was at Melbourne, so I had sort of Andrew Gaze as one of the senior coaches that I got to listen to.
Wow, that's sick.
And Warwick Giddy. So I was really lucky. That I think fell into a right age group with guys, and I was around some good coaches all through high school. I had Chris Anstey, and so I had some remarkably
what
good
high school
coaches.
did you go to?
I went to Caulfield Grammar when I was younger.
Yep, and they've got a basketball program.
They got a basketball program, and I was really fortunate because I got to train with the year 12 team since I was young. So I think that got to be around a lot of basketball, got to see different coaches the way they coach, and I guess it was. I think also being in an environment with a lot of older athletes was really beneficial for my development.
Brings your level up.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so even now when I coach a few junior kids that are killing it, I'll make sure that I get to put them in some older athlete groups just for them to understand the standard of what it's like to play to be in a high environment and understand what it takes to work very hard to get certain results, I guess.
Yeah, most definitely. So I think you're playing it down a little bit. It sounds like you're a fucking gun. If you were playing up all the time against all these other guys.
I would say I was above average for my age group in my state, but there were some really, really good. Victoria is kind of like the state for basketball.
Yep.
Other states are definitely coming along these days, but 10 years ago, Victoria was the state for basketball. So I guess that it was really competitive, and though I was good, there were sufficient athletes who were better than me.
Yeah.
But it was really competitive. Like if you're playing in the VC, which is the top comp, there's maybe 100 kids, and to be in that top 100 is pretty good in general. So I was always roughly around there. So I did well, but I think that I'm not going to sit here and say I was the best because there was some phenomenal athletes growing up.
Who else was in the leagues at the same time that you were?
There was a variety of kids. There was who went to, I think a few of them, Zach Triplets at Melbourne right now.
Yep.
A bunch of the guys in my age group are still in college.
Yep.
But so a few guys that will eventually be really good, but they're still probably in those developing years, I'd say.
Yeah, for sure. And did you ever think at any point that you were going to go professional with your basketball career?
I wanted to. I all through high school in the States, they look at your grades from year 8 onwards, and so that was actually probably really.
They go all the way back to year 8.
They look. I think year 8 or year 9, they look at all your reports. I don't know if they necessarily. And I don't know if they necessarily make it find an average, but I think they make it a priority to look at all your reports all the way up, and they want to see consistent progress. So because I was a little bit slower, I guess, when it comes to reading and writing, I had to make sure that because I had, if you do want to go to college, here is I had to be on it myself, which I think was good because I think sometimes if you don't want to do something, you're not necessarily going to do it, but I sort of had to.
Yeah.
So I was very thankful in that respect that I had a reason to give effort. Otherwise, I would have probably slacked or not put enough effort into it. But I played at a relatively high level. But in a roundabout way, I ended up leaving high school a little bit earlier just to work and help out a little bit. So I ended up working full time when people are usually. So I'm 17, working full time. I'm just in retail, but in the mornings and evenings.
Where were you working?
I was doing a few different jobs. I was working at ASICS, and I did some of their triathlon store stuff, and I loved it. Then I was a assistant store manager, and then I was in the scape of 6 months, and I became like an acting store manager. So like it was funny because I was managing a handful of staff that are double my age at the time, and it was a really interesting learning experience. And I probably recommend to a lot of young people, if they want to learn how to work, I think it's really good to learn how to sell and learn how to communicate with people from different age groups. So I think that was really important. I guess for myself, I was learning a lot about like what it means to manage people when you need to be more intense, I guess, and also let people have
just people skills.
Yeah. So I think that
there's nothing
awesome.
like actually getting in and actually doing it as well. Like you can do all the learning and all the courses that you like, but until you actually have that first-hand experience of doing it, it makes a massive difference.
For sure. So, but in the mornings and evenings, I just coach. So like I'd be up at 4:45 riding to, because I was still young, so I was roughly 17 when I was doing this, and I was still riding to all these courts and coaching for a few hours, and then riding back, and then the evenings I coached for a few more hours. But I got to the point where I was training roughly 200 kids a week, and I loved it. And I just sort of thought work was going well, but I wasn't going to be doing this for the rest of my life. And I thought, I'll give this a crack. So I quit my job, and just as I quit my job, COVID relatively started after that.
Unreal.
Yeah, so I would have been probably six months or so, but just start doing more of my private coaching, but was awesome. It was a really interesting experience. I think that there's a lot of talk about like thinking about what you want to go do as a job or planning everything, but I think there's also something to be said for just taking action, just doing it and almost figuring it out. And realistically, if I had all the information, I would not have opened up a facility.
For sure.
I didn't understand anything about planning permits. I didn't understand anything about council rates, what it takes to build a facility. I just went with it. And mind you, I kind of thought to myself, I'm like, hey, I'm 18 at the time. Worst thing that's going to happen, I'm just going to have to figure out something else. So land on my ass and start working somewhere else again. So I sort of thought I can always find a job at Woolworths if I need to.
Yeah.
So I thought I'd give it a crack, and it wasn't
crazy easy. That you've done all that so young though. Like 18, that's wild to go and get your own space, set up your own business, and sort of be proactive like that.
It was in hindsight, and everyone was telling me not to. Everyone was telling me it's a really bad idea. And it honestly, in hindsight, there are smarter ways to do it than I did. My dad's quite someone that's very much like, just go do it, you'll figure it out. Just go do it. With less, probably, I probably needed to have some more little bit risk averse, but it was really interesting. And there was probably 6-7 months just scraping through to cover bills, sleeping at the facility,
just grinding it away.
Up at 6 a.m. When I first started, I didn't have enough clients to run group sessions, so I would do, even if I had, let's just say I had 4 athletes in an afternoon, even though I could put them in a group, I would do individuals so I could still be able to cover the bills and make sure I got all my council rates done, and so as I fill up spots, I would eventually make them into group sessions, and that's how I slowly built that. But
that's pretty much almost the same as how it worked out for me as well. To start off with, it was like I worked at an Anytime Fitness was my first job. Went to Anytime Fitness, 5 a.m. starts. It was like you're doing the free complimentary sessions to every new fucking person that would sign up. Oh yeah, I'll come at 5. The amount of times I drove and it was nowhere near my place. It was like 45 minutes away. 5 a.m, all the way there, to have the person, not rock up and then be at a random park somewhere at 6 a.m. in the morning and it's pissing down with rain, and then they text you 5 minutes before, I'm not coming now. Like, you got to do I think any coaching, a gig, it looks hell good and it is a sick job, but you got to do all that hard shit to start off with. And it's really hard to stay in it, especially early days.
For sure. I guess that for me, I think for me that I found by accident that the thing that served me most was serving others, I guess. Mm-hmm. So I think that everyone has bits and pieces that fulfill them. For myself, I've never felt more fulfilled than I see others succeed. And I love the process of learning how can I not necessarily coach one way, but how can I learn how they learn and adapt my style to them.
For sure.
I think it's really easy for a lot of coaches to get in the habit of coaching the only way they want to coach. And if the kid can't or the athlete can't feed it in, he's the problem. Where realistically it takes some level of self-accountability and like, what am I doing here that I can't get results? I think I've had a few times where I've had a few really good athletes and I'm doing this session and I'm thinking, blimey, I can't. I'm not breaking through. And I know the answer to the issue we're having. And it was one session, it was quite a good NBL player I was coaching. I'm thinking, bloody hell, I can't, what am I doing wrong here? Because I'm showing him what's going wrong, but I couldn't fix it. And I thought, Jono, I've just got to, and I film all my sessions. So I film all my professional sessions, not for social media. That would happen sort of by accident. I film all my sessions to be able to show my athletes what they're doing.
Yeah.
But
Which is pretty common for lots of basketball coaching stuff. You do so much film work. Yeah.
For sure. So I filmed everything we did. And then I listened to the way that he talked about the problems that he was having. And then I think it's really, all I did was just listen to everything that he said. And I said, how can I actually use his vocabulary to intertwine with the way I'm speaking for him to make connections? Because everyone makes connections a little bit different ways. Like, I can't do my job if I don't understand how you either fix and come to conclusions. So I think that was a really big turning point in my career. When it comes to... Yeah, so that was probably one of the biggest turning points in my career.
That's awesome.
Hey, legends, quick little break in the podcast here because I'm back with another sick giveaway. So I've teamed up with Kamikaze Energy, which I've got all the cans just in front of me here, for a $500 worth of product from them, and it's super, super easy to enter. So all you have to be doing is tuning on into FatChat, obviously, and I'm going to be putting out a post next Friday, and you just need to follow both Body Majic and Kamikaze Energy and tag your mates in that post. The more tags that you do, the more entries that you're going to get into winning this amazing prize. I've got all the flavors in front of me. The best thing, I've got the yellow one here. The best thing I love about the Kamikaze Energy drinks is the names of the flavors. So I've got the yellow one. It is called, what's this one called? Slushy Madness. Sounds sick. Let's give it a crack. Nice, that's solid. So, great thing about Kamikaze Energy drinks is it gives you that little caffeine hit without giving you the crash. Tastes bloody amazing, and it's super easy to get yourself an entry into $500 worth of product from them. Follow me, follow Kamikaze, get tagging your mates in that post, and good luck. We'll be drawing it on November 8th.
So going back to your coaches, you said Andrew Gaze, Ainsley, all these great names that you got to work with for your junior days. Was there any real good lessons or sessions or anything like that they used to do with you? Or bits of advice?
Warwick Giddy, who's Josh Giddy's dad, was... Andrew is a really, really good coach, really system based, and that was awesome because I was learning where to be on the court, spacing, some really important stuff. But there was times I had no idea what was going on. Just really I don't know if I was slow, but I was not figuring it out.
He knew what was going on in his head.
He knew exactly what was going on, but I did not. So, but there was a few times where Warwick would pull me over and sort of tell me where I need to be, and it connected with me. So I think that was probably one of the first times I started to understand the benefit of communicating with different ways to different athletes. So it was awesome. And mind you, Andrew was excellent. And there was times where intensity was awesome. So definitely not criticizing by any realm, but I was thankful that there was, I guess, two people there at the time, and I just sort of learned how to. I don't know. I think there was.
I think you just click with different coaches for
sure.
Any athlete or anyone working for any job. When you got someone that you're working with or sort of giving you critiques, you click with other people and then you don't click with other ones. So
yeah, Andrew was great, but I think that was really interesting about how certain coaches can have different impact on different athletes at different times. So not always even myself. I coach a McKinnon team, and they're a part of the junior program, and there's times where I might be saying something and then my assistant coach says it, and he just does it way better than I do. I'm thinking, bugger.
Yeah.
Because I'm just not seeing something at the time or whatever it may be. And I think different voices at different times are really important.
And then your first actual coaching role, so you said that you got into, your private coaching sessions pretty early on. Did you coach any junior teams? You must have at some point.
So I started
mentioned McKinnon, obviously, just then.
did some stuff with McKinnon. They've been great, but Tubber Murphy, who was running a academy in the morning, and Andre Solomons, and they were both really good coaches, but they were running an academy in the morning out towards that way, and they needed an extra coach in the morning, and they asked me, and I jumped for the chance, and then eventually Tiber, who was awesome, ended up moving up to the Gold Coast. Wonderful physio, by the way.
Yep.
And I sort of took over the coaching in the mornings there. So I actually started in private by accident. And I loved it so much that I eventually did like under 20s at McKinnon because they needed coaches, and that was great fun. Then I did 16s, and I love that. And I did a little bit younger now, and it's been awesome. So kind of did a little bit backwards. But as much as I was done the McKinnon stuff in my private coaching, I've always done like a whole lot of semi-professional athletes.
Yep.
That's how I started. So I started with a bunch of semi-pros, worked them at the start just purely for free just to learn. So I've done that since I started. So since I was 17, I did a whole lot of semi-professional athletes, being in the gym. Half of, I guess, the way that I think that a lot of coaches learn is by learning from your athletes. So as much as it's me coaching, it's also me asking them questions. What do they see? What are they seeing on the floor? Only certain things that you can grasp from older athletes.
Yep.
Every time I train a new NBL player, I always learn something, and I always relay that message on either to the youth or for other up and coming NBL athletes. So I did a fair bit of semi-pro stuff. I met Ben Air when probably 3 to 4 years ago when he was playing at Knox. And he was a starting point guard, wasn't scoring a whole lot, but he was a starting point guard, still was quite a good player. But then COVID hit, and me and Ben trained damn near every day all through COVID until he left to go to Cairns. So, and that was awesome because he started shooting really well. His handle was getting off the charts. It was just, I loved that because at the time he was the best player that I'd ever coached, but exactly that same point where I just learned so much from him. And there was like little things about, I couldn't remember the NBL player, but when he would guard athletes full court, and he would count how many bounces it took for the athlete to cross half court at the start of the game.
Yeah, right.
And by the end of the game, he'd know if he's wearing them out because they're taking more bounces to cross half court.
Wow, that's
and so there's little lessons like that where it's like, I probably told
little
that
things that you didn't, that you personally hadn't worked out yet, but then hearing from their experience, like, oh wow, that's a great little nugget.
And so I took that, and I've told that to every one of my point guards, and now I get all my guards to guard full court and really like work on being really good defenders. So little things like that.
That's awesome. So, John, I'm super excited to talk everything performance related with you. You've sort of touched on lots of great, moments in that little bit that we just did then, but I want to know about specific examples of the athletes that you've worked with. So, Ruben Tarangi is one of your main clients, and also Ben Air, who are both stars in the NBL. Are they're both at Southeast now? Hey?
Both at Southeast.
Yeah, because Ben's just moved. I've got Ben on in a couple of days' time, so I'm keen to hear all of his stuff. But can you take us into how that came about, you training both of them, how they first got into contact with you, and what your actual sessions in terms of reps were looking like, what the skills were that they were wanting to work on, all that sort of thing?
For sure. I'll start with Ben. So
Great.
Ben...
And just a backstory for Ben Air, he's had probably the most improved NBL season out of... What I would say he is the most improved NBL player from last year.
Sure.
And he was up at Cairns, I'm sure you're going to, but he was in Cairns, and then he's blown his career up, and go, you tell me.
He's killing it. So Ben got in contact with me when he was playing at Knox, and eventually we started working together. COVID hit. Because I've got a facility, I could still train professional athletes. Only very few, but he was the one professional athlete that I trained at my facility. So we were there every day. Ben, probably to this day, hardest worker I've ever trained. Day dot.
Yep.
you don't necessarily need to work as hard as he did in regards to, like, I think you can still get quite good results. But
are you talking like when he was actually at your sessions, or the amount of volume that he was doing?
The volume was really high, so he did a whole lot of volume. We really didn't have much else to do anyway, so it was the volume was basically twice a day. But Ben would be drenched in workouts. Well, I have to have a bloody towel just to wipe his sweat off the court half the time. But the level of intensity was remarkable. His want to learn was also incredible. So it wasn't that he just trained because he thought he had to train. He trained because the desire to get better was extreme.
Yep.
So his intensity was unmatched to this day. Every drill he used to talk a lot about everything must be game paced, which I believe in. I just think every doesn't matter if it's a free throw, the focus is there. Doesn't matter if it's a layup, the focus is there.
Yep.
Just him in a gym, 100%, no doubt about it. So that was awesome. And I'm pretty obsessive. So like I watched every part of his film, everything. Ben was a bit of a different cat because we were still trying to make it to the NBL like properly at the time. We worked on we didn't really have necessarily a game plan. It was more like just go, Jono, just go take it, because anything you want to work on, we'll work on it. Because most guys, like otherwise, like Ruben, I'm going
would have other like feedback. I'm sure of, we need you to play this spot or work on this and that sort of thing. Yeah.
Or it would be, hey, this is our numbers from last year, so it was a little bit different. This is the problems we're seeing. So it was awesome because we worked a lot on really nerdy performance stuff. We worked on getting his shot percentage really, really high in training. And so let's just say that he got to the point where he was making 90 plus out of 100. I would measure how many of his 90 out of 100 were good makes. Mm-hmm. What I mean by that is, like, are they off his hands the right way? Is he using his legs the right way every single time he shoots? And then how many shots is he making that maybe a back rim, or he's forcing it, or he's thumb thinking like crazy? And how can we decrease the amount of even makes to high quality makes? Because in general that actually increases your, let's say it's 90 out of 100 to 95 out of 100, and you can still miss you're going to miss a few shots.
Yep.
But that was really interesting. We did a whole lot of whenever I coach, I'm really big on understanding the court spacing, make it very much game-like. Otherwise, there's no point. Like, I'm never going to start doing thousands and thousands of code.
I was going to say, so how do you actually imitate the intensity? Like, what are you doing in terms of those reps? Is it the speed of the reps, or how many reps? Or
intensity probably depends, because there's times we have to be slow. Like, Ben's quite fast, so there's learning how to play with speed is also different. So I always talk about being purposefully fast or purposely slow. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to be slow, get to your slow point quickly and either freeze there and keep playing. But when I talk about game reps, it'd be more like if there's a half-court basketball, we can't do a drill and not take into account where, for those that don't know, there's like split line and help are like different positions on a court for the defensive team.
Yep.
So like, even if I might be guarding someone else, I'll also be in a help position to help if the drive does come. So I don't know if that clarifies, but there's often, because it's a team game, there is team defensive principles, and it's my job that if we are doing drills,
take that into account, not just going, this is a big open court, do whatever you want kind of thing. Yeah.
So you'll often find people on the internet or doing drills, they'll do a whole bunch of like cone drills, or they'll do actions that, if you watch basketball, just don't make sense.
Yep.
So I think everything needs to have a major application value to it.
Makes a lot of sense, that, yeah, for sure. And like you said, if you're working in this amount of space, why would you want to increase that by having a cone, 2 times the length of where it's actually going to be if you're needing to work in a small space with other defenders and stuff? It makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
So Ben was general, worked really heavily on photos, worked a lot on screens, getting his 3-point percentage up. Ruben Tarangi was a little bit different. I trained a bunch of the development players for Phoenix, and Ruben knew Ben because Ruben was with Ben at Knox.
Yep.
In the professional sporting world, it's pretty much all word of mouth, because
for sure
social media doesn't really mean much when it comes to professional clientele. These are assets to teams. that are worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it's not because they look good on social media.
Yep, for sure.
In my opinion.
Well, it's very much the same how I've started working with the AFL athletes, the NBL guys that I've got, other sports as well. It's all just been, a bit of a word of mouth thing. So very much the same. You had one guy in that came and did really well. You worked really hard with them, and there was proven results. And then they go, "What the fuck was Ben doing last season?" Or for me, what the hell was Luke Jackson doing last season? And then it just sort of flows on from that.
For sure. So with Ruben, Ruben came to me. He's like, "Hey, I want to learn how to use his body," because Ruben's
big fella,
massive, 6'5" at least, really like remarkably strong. I haven't remarkably strong as a really active wing athlete. In previous seasons, he shot the ball really, really well. So I wanted to get his percentage from 3 up a little bit. We worked a lot on driving angles, which sounds funny, but the way that you beat your offensive player, if you take a wider line, what happens is your man has more of an ability to either get back in front or push you off your line.
Yep.
Now, there's a few reasons why this is really important. If you beat your man, when I talk to kids, I always say, imagine you got your football over on your school. Is it faster to run from goal to goal straight through or around? And it's faster to run straight through.
Yep.
So we basically want to have the fastest line to the ring. And what happens with this is that you basically demand your help defense. So that team defense we talk about, they either need to overcommit and you can make passes to the man that they're leaving, or they stay and you have either a wide open shoulder or a wide open floater or a jump shot or whatever it may be, or a layup. But if you can have really good driving angles, your passing automatically gets better.
Yep.
Your ability to shoot more shots gets better because your defense didn't take a slight step off you. But we worked in his angles. So he's really strong, but he was almost making his life extremely challenging because his angles are really wide.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's really easy to do, but it's probably one of the most unutilized aspects of basketball. You get good driving angles, you will go pretty far. You don't need to have all this fancy nonsense. If you can jab step and drive straight, so we worked on having quite a wide base, but so particularly got his shooting percentage up. He's playing actually in the New Zealand League right now, like a New Zealand NBL. It's like the off season. There's an Australian league that's the off season. There's also a New Zealand comp, which is really good. And so he's playing in that now, and he's shooting roughly 45% from 3, which is, anyone that knows basketball, that's really high.
Yep.
So I think he's leading in that 3rd or 4th right now, which is incredible.
Which is great, yeah. And it's just on the back of all the actual reps and sessions he's been putting in. So like in a session for, Ben or Ruben, you've mentioned the intensity and sort of the types of stuff that you're going to do. How many actual reps you putting up? Like you said, like you did your 500 reps in the backyard for your layups. Is that how you program it, or is it off time, or what do you kind of do?
It's a little bit different. So I don't necessarily refer to myself as just a coach. Like, I'm not here putting you through a workout. I'm here to primarily educate. So if it's something where it's a new program or a new concept we're working on, I have to be a teacher in that moment. So there is times where we do more theory than we actually do reps, because I think anyone can go to a court and get thousands of shots up and nothing gets better.
Yep.
So, I think one thing that might separate me in my industry is I don't feel nervous when I make certain changes to athletes' performance, because all I ever do, let's say it's shooting mechanics, I lean into more of what they do well and I lean away from what they do badly. So if someone's got 30 years of muscle memory, I can't change their form.
Yep.
I just can't. But there's if they are shooting the ball at a decent percentage, why can't we do more of that? So the reason why I think I've had quite good results with a variety of NBL players is that I'm not ever making them feel wildly uncomfortable because I'm not changing what they already do. I've got a book that has notes on every player in the NBL currently. I've got tape on every single one of them. Basically, one, either if my players play against them, I know how I would play against them.
Yep.
Two, if they want to do a session with me,
You've already got a little
I've
bit of
already
stuff.
got stuff written down for them. And so I think it's really good to understand that everyone shoots maybe a little bit differently, but then how can we lean into the high quality aspects of your shot?
Yep.
And how can we lean away from the stuff that you don't do?
Yep.
Like there's a reason why you've still made, even if it's 50 out of 100, there's still a reason why you've made that 50.
It's actually interesting. Some of the guys that I've already chatted to on this, trip for doing all this pod were actually talking about that almost double down on your strengths sometimes. Sometimes you don't need to, change anything too bad. And like, obviously you want to make your weaknesses stronger, but sometimes if you like really just hone on in and just make sure that whatever you're doing good is getting better and improving, that's almost, better sometimes.
For sure. So I think it's definitely a blend of doing theory and reps.
Yep.
Game reps, it's a variety. Like, and it depends how you block your sessions. Like with Ruben and Ben, like Ruben, it was like, we're going to train. So we were doing like 5 days a week for a couple of months. And he's got the World Cup coming up as well for the for tall bucks, which would be awesome. So I guess that he was really committed. So you can't just do one session and think you're automatically going to get better.
Yep.
It does take work.
And consistency.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So 5 days a week, and the way that we structured that was we'd have like theory days, and then we'd have like, which would typically be after like a lot of volume. And then we'd have days where it's a little bit of everything, which might be ball handling, finishing, floaters. But we would just I would just basically do a percentage of things that are most vital, I guess, for them, and just balance it depending on which.
Definitely. And another massive part of getting the most out of any skill, coaching, professional level sport is the like sports psych behind it as well, and mentality and confidence and all that sort of thing. So do you guys work on that together as well? And if you do, what are some of the things that you get up to, or some of the techniques that you like to use? I'm talking like, say if they haven't like hit, they've missed their last 5 shots, and how you actually think about that in a game, or how you think about that in training.
It's funny you say that, because I almost think my job is more psychology than it is actually coaching. Mm-hmm. And so if I went to uni, I would think I would do psychology, because I think it's probably damn near the most important thing when it comes to professional athletes, because they're professional athletes for a reason. And how can we actually maximize their performance? So I won't give away all the secrets, but one thing that I'm prioritize is I'm really big on process. So I think it's really easy to get emotional. You've got a live game, you're playing for contracts, there's a whole lot of factors that are really important. So I'm really big on process. So what that means is I'm not just going to shoot until we make 1,000. I'm going to teach my athlete, how do you shoot? And then if something's going wrong, can you fix it? So if you're at a training that I'm not at, or if you're in a game and you miss one shot, can you identify what's going wrong? Instead of thinking, shit, think, okay, how can I actually fix that?
Yep.
And once they can fix that, they're in complete control. It doesn't become an emotional game. It becomes, I'm in complete control of my actions, and I can always change this, and I don't have the need to get upset.
Yeah.
I think there actually is a place for being intense and driven and focused, but I think it's good to use that certain ways.
I think that's great, because like even with my personal training clients that I work with, it's the same thing. So whether you're working on somebody's diet or a skills for basketball, whatever it might be, it's actually more equipping them with the skills and the knowledge to be able to work out, if something did go wrong, how you actually fix that yourself. And like you said, not getting emotional about it. And it's just more about, all right, how do I get back on to, where I was, or how do I, get back on to following the diet, or doing the exercise, or hitting the shot, or whatever it may be.
And then I think it also comes back to the coach in particular to want to understand the answers.
Yep.
So I've never told anyone that I know everything, but if someone has an issue, I will make it my job to find it and find the answer for it, And so if I can't get a result, that is on me. And if they're having a consistent issue of confidence or not being consistent, even though they're having the issue, that is I have to take self-accountability to get those results.
Yep.
And even though they're the athlete, there's a reason why this thing has still been coming up and there hasn't been a solution yet. So I think that because I've been quite thankful to coach a bunch of professional women, professional male athletes, I think process is one of the things that are stood out the most, because I think it's something that most athletes that when they do get out of order, it's been the easiest thing to fix.
Yep.
And it becomes more of a okay, instead of getting shitty, we actually have the answers.
Yeah, for sure. And then that's, great. Awesome to hear all that process. I think that, lots of people can take a lot away from that. So now going actually personally onto you in terms of, you're such a high level performer. You're 22. You're building this great, brand and business. You're working with all these pro athletes. You're going to go places. What are you actually doing in terms of your daily habits that you're making sure that you're on top of on top of your game? So I found that everything from literally when I wake up to what breakfast I have, to how long it takes me to get ready, to going to the gym, what I post on socials, all this sort of stuff. I'm pretty habitual with it all. So I'm really keen to know, what are you actually getting up to?
For many years, I'm very routine based.
Yep.
And I think that's excellent, but I think that I also have to be adaptable to my environments. Like this week, I'm training an NBL player, and he said, I've got commitments during my day, so I have to train. If I'm going to train, I have to start training at 4:30 a.m. And I actually usually go to bed at roughly 1 a.m. in the morning. So I've had to change the way
1 a.m. Holy fuck, man! What are you doing up until 1 a.m.? Watching film.
Yeah, so it's like
intense.
Yeah, so to answer the question, I'm really big. I write everything down. So even though I'm quite dyslexic, I like to have a plan, and then I just basically have my book, have all your sessions planned, and know how long you're going to get there. I track everything. Like, I'm a serious planner. Like, if it's bills, if it's food, if it's sessions, court hire, phone calls, meetings, everything. Like for today, I'm coaching at least probably 9 hours today, but I've got 2 calls and I've got 4 meetings, and there's just things I've got to try and fit in. And I also want to lift if I can. So there's a variety. There's so much on, but I think if you actually can write it down and plan your way through it, I think it's really easy.
Most definitely.
I've been learning a lot about recently the thought of just taking action rather than thinking about things as well. I think a lot. Like I'm often in my head when I'm driving.
Which is kind of like this habit thing that I'm getting at. So it's like, that's you go, okay, cool, I'm just going to go do the action of whether it's, write your stuff down or, oh yeah, I know what I'm doing for my food. Oh yeah, I'm going to the gym and I'm lifting and all that sort of thing. So that's literally you just making a habit. So you don't even have to think about it. So it's just like making sure it's just action, action, action the whole time rather than going, oh, what am I actually doing? And thinking about it too much.
I also am really big on, we control how we feel, and everything that we do in life, I'm really big at complete self-accountability. So, and we're in complete control of the way that we feel and act.
Yep.
I know it sounds interesting, but I think if we tell ourselves we're out of control, you're going to end up being quite out of control. But I'm not saying that means you don't get stressed or things can't bother you, but I'm probably more so meaning if I have a problem, I can either talk about this or I can find a plan. And how can I make a plan? How can I fix this? Because then you're not going to get, personally, I don't get stressed if I know the solution to a problem I'm trying to fix. And if I do have a problem, what are the steps to fix it? So I guess that it's, how can I control my emotions? Even if it's times to teaching lessons, like when I'm coaching certain athletes, there are times where even if I'm in a great mood, I need to appear intense to gain certain results. So I think we're completely in control of the way we feel and act. Like this morning, I didn't want to get up at 3:55 a.m, but I did it.
Yep.
Just got to do it.
Yep.
I think we're in complete control of ourselves.
Yeah, for sure. And in terms of if there was a young basketball athlete listening to this podcast right now, if there's just 1 or 2 bits, I know it's hard because people ask me, oh, what's one bit of advice? But if there's something that you go, okay, this is the most important thing that I learned early on that improved my game, helped me improve my skills, what is one lesson that someone could take away from listening to this?
I could just.
There's so much.
I could just say practice, but I would focus on enjoying it.
Yep.
Because if you don't love it, you won't go far.
Yep.
And there is so much joy to this game of basketball that if you find the love in playing and you play it a lot, practice will come anyway. And there's just so many ways to enjoy it. So I think just do try and find the love in it. Otherwise, it's hard on the mental.
Yeah, absolutely. So your personal goals now, you've got this massive social media following. If anybody hasn't seen it, you have to go check out your socials. What are your social handles?
Jono.Hansford. I don't know what my TikTok is. My Instagram's Jono.
You'll find it. Just get on there. I'll tag them all on these. They're so good, the clips. I can see why everybody is so engaging and loving them so much, because it's just really interesting, all the tips that you give. And do you have what's your goals? What's your next little thing that you're wanting to work on? Where do you want to get to?
I appreciate that. Social media was such a fluke for me. Not to sound like a dickhead about it, but I didn't mean to. I just post.
So crazy.
I film everything I do with athletes anyway. So all I started doing was I posted.
I think that's why it works, is because it's actually so organic and so natural how you're talking. So it's just like you're just giving a tip.
Yeah.
And it's not like, you're not looking at the camera, telling the camera this is how you do it. You're just telling someone, coaching them.
Yeah, I'm not saying here's 3 combos to work on. No, I'm not really doing that sort of stuff. I think it's more. I don't actually have time to do that anyway. I can't sit in front of the camera and say, here are tips to do this. I only have time to coach. So if my thing is coaching, I just film myself and doing it. But I guess that I'm thankful to have the community that I do have, and I will continue to try and post for them.
You must be fully booked with all your stuff as well.
Yeah, like that being said, there's nothing. If I got told not to post and just coach, I would happily I would coach professionally for the rest of my life and not particularly mind about social media. So I wouldn't necessarily say, that it isn't a really good tool. So I'm really thankful to have it, because I think it's almost like showing what you believe in and how you coach consistently. So I like it's almost like an online resume at times.
Absolutely.
So I think that's been awesome. I love getting all the messages from people that talk about their progress, and if I got a second to help them, I will. My plan for the future is to continue to train professional athletes.
Yeah, great.
And do more and more. It just fulfills me.
Absolutely.
It is the thing that gives me the most value in life. Is
That's
just
great.
Seeing others do really well, and hopefully I can play a small role in that.
That's awesome, man. It's so satisfying when you sitting back watching a game and go, oh yeah, like you just see them doing well. It feels like, feel really part of it. It's awesome.
When Ben had he played Melbourne United back in Melbourne. It was his first game back in Melbourne, and it was the first year he was a training player. And actually, a few guys got injured, and he got to jump in and played. And I'm driving back from Adelaide from this tournament. I was trying to get there in time for the game, but I wasn't able to make it. And it's bucketing down with rain, and I'm listening to the radio, and Ben's killing it. So he's basically scored 20 points, 20 assists,
Wow.
10 assists, and him and Bryce Cotton, I think, were the only players that whole season that had done it. So I'm thinking, I'm like screaming in my car
Going, yes.
as I'm driving, and it's torrential rain. I think it's like, it's 9 o'clock or something, but it's pitch black outside. Like I'm driving back from Adelaide, and I'd probably never, one of the very few times, I guess, where I could say that definitely one of the happiest moments of my life is just like hearing him just kill it.
That's awesome.
Like, because I was there when we had
Doing all the early sessions, the reps,
and it's not easy, and it's hard work. And Ben was, I think, 26 when I was 25 or so when I met him. So it was like, I was just so incredibly proud. But I wouldn't have, even when I've done, I guess, stuff you could say on paper successful, I haven't felt that happiness. I've enjoyed it, and I'm thankful for the process, but it's not the same level of joy.
That you got sitting in your rainy car.
Absolutely.
On that.
Like, it's torrentially raining. I'm trying to drive to stay alive, and it's but I've never felt as much fulfillment, I guess.
That's awesome. And who are you looking forward to watching most in NBL this year? Is there any teams? Is there any individual players that you're like, obviously the guys that you train, Ben and Ruben, but is there anyone else that is a bit of a favourite of yours?
Some of the girls I really enjoy training.
Yeah.
So there's 2 younger girls, one Gemma Potter and a girl called Dallas that plays for the Flyers. They're both coming back from ACL injuries. Tremendously hard workers and young, getting after it. I think they're going to have such a great career, and I'm excited to see the way their journey unfolds.
That's awesome.
So that's been awesome. I've only recently been doing more WNBL athletes. Typically I train more males, so I do train females, but it's probably more of like a 80-20 split. So I've been loving and training these like up and coming junior athletes, and that's been a really awesome learning experience for me.
Absolutely.
If anything, I coach them better than I do maths. I don't know if it's just that I think I love.
It's also like what the person is like, vibing with you as well. So like, I'm sure it's just that, they're so eager to learn and, get better.
They're just so motivated.
Driven as well. Yeah, absolutely.
Like they've got extra motivation, didn't play last year because of their injury. And so because they both did ACL injuries like the same day basically. So, that's been awesome because they've almost missed out on all this basketball. Now they're playing all this basketball. So it's just awesome to see their development.
That's great, man. So how does anybody get in contact with you if you're wanting, coaching sessions, advice, checking out your stuff? Have you got a website? Give yourself a bit of a plug. Go.
Currently you can't.
How do they join the wait list then?
Eventually the wait list will be posted on my Instagram at jono.hansford. But fingers crossed, but I can't promise anything because I might not be taking clients.
Great, man. Well, it's so great to hear that it's all going so amazing for you. I can't wait to watch and see where all your career goes, watch all you guys play this year, and I have to come down to the court and have a bit of a shoot around and dribble around. You can teach me a few things.
We'll figure it out for sure.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, bro.